Hello, everyone. Can you guys hear me well? If you can, maybe just type it on the chat window. Hey, hi, Rajat. Hi, Yogesh. Hi. Great. I'll just wait for a couple of more minutes for a few more people to join so that we can get started. Meanwhile, maybe you guys can just type in on the chat window on where are you joining from. Uh, And first of all, thank you for joining on a Friday evening. That's extremely, hi Yogesh from Mumbai. Great. So yeah, Friday evening. Okay, somebody's from Bangalore. All right. So yeah, so I think joining on a Friday evening definitely is a big deal, a good, nice weekend ahead. But I thought let's do this session on a Friday because it's also end of the week. But more importantly, we are very close to a lot of the deadlines, which are maybe 1.5 months away. And every day I get so many questions from so many people, every student that I talk to, and I thought this might be a good time to kind of address the kind of questions most people have in this journey, right? So, all right, so let me get started, not penalizing all those people who come on time. Thank you so much, everyone, again. Anyone? Okay, okay, I see a lot of people over here. All right. So, all right, guys, thank you so much again and welcome to this webinar. So this is going to be an interesting webinar because my focus today is completely uh, addressing the kind of questions you have in your mind. I want to also make sure by the end of this 1 hour that we have together, um, every question that you have in mind, I want to answer at least in the scope of your MBA journey. If it is anything related to your MBA journey, I'll definitely focus on answering that. And at the same time, in the end, if you want to plan out your MBA journey this year, if you want to make sure that you want to evaluate your profile, I will also share a profile evaluation, my profile evaluation calendar, so you guys can actually book your slot. And I would love to talk to you guys too, right? So, all right, so let's get started. So let me just introduce myself. Hi, I'm Shreekala. I'm one of the co-founders of Crack Verbal. We've been in this business for more than a decade now, and I've been helping students apply to top masters and MBA programs for years now, which also means that I know exactly the kind of anxiety you guys face at this point in time. There are some who have applied in the first round, and I'm getting messages saying, "Ma'am, I'm very anxious. December is where most of the interview results come out. In fact, December 10th, 11th is going to be very stressful for me rather than others also. So yeah, so a lot of these round one results are going to come out in the next couple of weeks. And some people are going through the interview phase, so that is another level of anxiety. So yeah, so all you guys who are looking at applying, there'll be multiple milestones that we will have, and we'll have to kind of do this together or plan this in a very informed way, and that is exactly what I want all of you to understand, right? So all right, so let's get started. So before we get started, I just want you guys to kind of put down any kind of fears that you have, like what is bothering you about your MBA application, right? So anything, if you guys want to just put down, I'll give you like couple 30 seconds to kind of put down on what is bothering you, or maybe an answer that you are looking for from this particular session. So okay, Payal says okay, essays, she's worried about the essays. Okay, Yogesh is worried about scholarship. Okay, I'll touch upon the scholarship aspect also. What if I don't get the right college? Yes, absolutely. That's one of the biggest fear that most people have. Right being the most important part over here. Anybody else? Any other thoughts? What is exactly bothering you? Another 10 seconds maybe for any other person who wants to just type in what's bothering you. Okay. So, all right. So I have my own agenda. I have kind of collated all the questions that mostly bothers most people. Okay. Somebody says My profile, will my profile get through? I'm really worried about my essays and SOP. Okay, Shravan says, I don't know what is the criteria for selecting the right kind of schools. So I think, this session is something that will help, and I'll try my best to address all the questions that you have, right? So let me get started with the first thing, and one of the most important thing, because this is almost like step one for most people when they are applying to a B school, right? Which is, do I have a very competitive GMAT or GRE score, right? So before we get to, looking at how we can address this, can you guys kind of type in what stage of GMAT or GRE prep you are? Are you preparing right now? So just write preparing. If you're done, just say done. I could, get to know about this. Okay, Garima says she's preparing right now. Others, please type in. Okay, somebody else says preparing. Payal says preparing. Divyanshi says preparing. All right. So most of you seem to be in the preparation. Okay, Shravan, I'm glad you're done. Weekend program already. No, Garima, weekend program does not really require GMAT. Again, depends on what program. The PGP Pro and PGP Max doesn't require GMAT. But yes, I'm going to focus on the fears right now and not, these aspects. These are, anyway, easily Googleable stuff. But what I'm going to focus on over here is where I want to provide insights on being in this whole MBA journey of so many people for so many years. I think that is what I want to focus on in this particular session. All right. So, okay. So, do I have a competitive GMAT or GRE score? All right. So, let me just tell you why B schools really look at GMAT and GRE or any other test for that matter. Like some schools also take a test called EA, which is an executive assessment program. But predominantly, most schools accept GMAT or the GRE score, most B schools, whether it's India or abroad, right? Now, when you look at what is a competitive GMAT or GRE score, right? A lot of them self-filter out themselves, saying that, I don't have a very high GMAT or GRE score, and that's why cannot apply to this particular school. What I want to tell all of those people, yes, GMAT and GRE is definitely important, and a higher score will definitely increase your probability. But even if you are in the range of the kind of scores of the published average that is there in most of the schools, and you think that there are other aspects of your application that can be highlighted, it can be something that we could look at, right? And so what I would suggest for people who are worried about their GMAT GRE score, obviously one is, for all those who are preparing, please put in your best. It is extremely important for you to actually aim high to improve the probability. But for people who are done and are worried about the score, let's look at, okay, what can be done next, right? So we can do some variation completely based on what profile, and we'll talk about that in a while, right? So that is one thing that I would really want to, want others to even understand and make sure they look at GMAT GRE not as a blocker, but say that, okay, if it is step one, what do I, how do I kind of understand the probability of getting in with the kind of scores I have, all right? Next question. How many of you are worried about a low GPA? Let me say yes, no. Maybe type on the chat window, yes, no. Are you people worried about your low GPA? Okay, there's someone no. Okay, Garima says no. Okay, very smart people for sure. Okay, Payal says yes. Divyanshi says no. Others, yes, no. Please type in. At least I'll get to know you're listening to me. Okay, Ayushi says yes. Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's look at, okay, I would put GMAT and the whole GPA part in one category, which is where, why do they actually even look at these aspects? Now, it completely depends on what stage of your career you are. Say, for example, if you are, with more than 5, 6 years experience, maybe there are other aspects that we can look at, right? And not the GPA aspect of it. Now, what I would suggest, what you can do when you're looking at worrying about your, low GPA is, one thing I would want to tell all of you is, don't fret because it's not controllable. It has already happened. 2 years ago, or 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, whenever you took your, whenever you did your undergrad. So it's already done and dusted. So let's not focus on bothering about it right now. But let's look at what you can do to offset it, right? What can you do to address this particular issue, right? Because why do they look at a GPA? Why do they look at GMAT, GRE? Is completely to make sure whether this person has the capability to actually endure or manage the rigor of the kind of program typical MBA is. You will require. In fact, I was just talking to one of the ISB alums very recently, and he said there is a lot of focus on analytical skills. There is a lot of focus on math related stuff, statistical models, mathematical models, operational research. There is a lot of quant involved. So it will be important for you to be very analytical, be very good with numbers, because in today's date, everything is about data, everything is about numbers, whether you're looking at financial data, whether you're looking at productivity data, whether you're looking at effectiveness data, or whether you're looking at sales data, right? There's so many aspects of data, and B schools truly believe that this is one skill that you really, really need to have. And that is also the rationale behind why they actually look at your GMAT, GRE, or maybe why do they look at your GPA, right? Now, what can you do to actually offset that? You'll have to showcase that in some other way. Is there a possibility for you to showcase your academic skills? Maybe you could take some certifications like PMP, or there are some Prince 2 certifications. In finance, people take CFA level 1, 2, 3. That actually showcases. In fact, let me tell you that if you are already a CFA charter holder, which is you've already done CFA level 1, 2, and 3, in some cases, your GMAT is even waived off, right? In fact, last year, I had one student who actually applied because he was not able to score very high on his GMAT. And he was a CFA charter holder with CFA level 1, 2, and 3, all three done. And he actually got into UNC, right? So it's definitely possible. And yes, executive assessment is also another option, which is a test that you can take, which is a smaller version of GMAT. But not all schools accept EA scores. So you'll have to be slightly, you'll have a smaller pool or a smaller list for schools that actually accept EA scores, right? Executive MBA programs accept EA scores. Plus, if your work involves a lot of analytical skills, right? So I remember I was working with someone who actually who did his undergrad in actuarial science, right? Actuarial science is core math. Now, if you are coming with this kind of a background, or your work involves a lot of analytical skills, you can actually kind of talk about it saying that, hey, this is an anomaly. GMAT GRE is an anomaly. Maybe I'm not good at standardized tests, but there are other ways where I can really show that I am really good academically, or I can actually manage the rigor of an MBA program, right? Now, how do you address and where can you address these aspects is also something that you need to know, right? Now, okay, you know that, okay, these are the things I need to know. Maybe I take some course, Coursera course, maybe I take some course on HBS, if you have time, and if you are looking at not applying maybe this year, maybe the year later, but if you are looking at applying maybe this year, some aspects of how you could look at addressing this point could be one through your recommenders, right? So maybe you want to ask your recommender and tell them that they would want to talk about this, your analytical skills as your strength, right? Now, when you look at marketing, for example, over here, is marketing considered as a strong analytical skill? It completely depends on what you're doing in marketing, because marketing again is a huge umbrella, right? So what kind of work you do really matters over here. You can talk about this in your additional optional essay. Most schools have an option where they give you an optional essay where they will tell you that, okay, tell us anything that you've not already covered in any other parts of your application. And this is a good chance for you to actually talk about either your gaps. This is a good chance to actually explain your academic record. So, maybe during your undergrad, you feel that you were too busy with your extracurriculars, or something happened health wise. Many people have many reasons of why they believe undergrad was not, or undergrad is not the exact assessment of their academic potential, right? So if that is the case for you, you do have an option to actually explain this in your optional essays and tell them that, hey, this is absolutely an anomaly. This does not actually showcase, it's not the true, showcase of my academic potential. And that's an option you can do. And otherwise, like I mentioned, any certifications or any extracurriculars that you can talk about, there is space in your application where you can talk about this too. So that is another point where you can actually talk about why you believe that academic is not something that you really need to worry about, or they really need to worry about, because you are good enough to manage the rigor of the program, right? So that is one aspect of how you look at addressing the academic part of it, right? I saw some people already said, okay, what is my next pain point? Am I really applying to the right B school? And honestly speaking, this can be something that is very, very important for everyone, because lot of people come with lot of kind of confusions, right? Now, one kind of confusion would be that, do I only look at top schools? Everybody wants to apply to a top school, and there's absolutely nothing wrong in that. But what you should also understand is, see, when you're applying to a top school, it's not just about applying to the top school, right? It is also making sure that you need to understand whether your profile is competitive enough. When you say your profile is competitive enough, my one suggestion to you would be, just go to the class profile. Don't live in any wonderland, right? That maybe one day by fluke I will get into Harvard. No, that is never going to happen. No fluke works in B school applications, right? You have to make sure that you understand and you look at data. You want to make sure that you go to LinkedIn, or you go to the Harvard class profile, or you go to the Duke class profile, or you go to any other school that you wanting to apply to. Make sure you look at data to validate whether that is a great fit for you. Data can be around, the kind of experience people come with. Data can be around the average age of the class. Data can be around the different kind of functions, that pre-MBA functions that people are coming with. Data can be around understanding that, okay, how is the recruitment happening for the kind of roles that you're looking at? Are these schools actually catering to those kind of roles? And this is very important, because I believe applying to an MBA program is one of the most important decisions that is going to be, and I think it is one of the most expensive investments that you're going to make on yourself, which also means that it is important that you be realistic. At the same time, don't fear, right? If you feel that you have a great profile, if you feel there is great things that you can talk on your application, then maybe you should look at, there can be some parameters that you can offset also, and that has to be something that has to go through. So what can you do with it, right? So one thing is, look at class profiles. That is one aspect that you can look at. Other aspect of it is, you can look at employment reports that I mentioned. You can also look at ranking comparisons over here. You can talk to alums, you can talk to mentors. If you look at how I work, right? So one aspect of it is completely updated about what's happening in the industry today, right? So it's not only that aspirants that I speak to alums on a regular basis to understand what's happening in each geography, what's happening in the recruiting world. And that is an extremely important information that we need to have. More importantly, following news. There are some great websites that you can actually follow from some really good information. One of the websites that you could look at it, say for example, again, don't go to speculative things or groups like Reddit and things like that, where there'll be 100 people who are demotivating you, and suddenly there's one person who stands there saying, I've got into a great school, right? But in fact, I remember one of my somebody I worked with, he said, I just stopped looking at Reddit because Reddit is the most demotivating group to be on. Sometimes there's a lot of fake posts also over there. But ideally, my suggestion would be that if you're really looking at researching on understanding what's happening at B schools, Poets and Quants is a great website or a great forum to kind of look at and research on and read up on. So go to Poets and Quant. That is one aspect of it. Another aspect of it is, and this is something that I talk about a lot, which is there is this tool. I'm not sure if you guys have used it already, but do use this tool called perplexity.ai. Perplexity.ai is a better form of Google, but it will give you exactly what you asked for. Now, say for example, you want to understand that, what are the recruiting companies that recruited from Michigan Ross this year? It will actually give you links to pages where this kind of information is available. If you want to go and understand that, okay, give me some class profiles of some students who have got into consulting from Chicago booth, or give me some product manager profiles from ISB. I'm sure it will actually pull out some data or some article or some video from YouTube where this kind of information is available. And I've been using it for a lot of research, which I feel it's definitely been something that has been useful not only for me and also for all the people I work with, because it not only gives this kind of data, but it also helps us understand that, okay, when you're applying to a specific school and you want to do a little bit more in-depth research about that school, you can actually ask that, okay, if I am coming from, say, a finance background, is this, but how will this particular school really help me? Right. And it actually gives citations to specific websites which you can go and deep dive into. Right. So it's not that it's just pulling out any SEO data like Google does. Right. So this is one tool that I would definitely suggest, and I would definitely want everyone to research a little bit on. The other aspect of it is, see, most of the people, when they actually select schools, uh, most of your recommendations either come from friends, or either come from family, or either come from peers at work, right? And I think it is an important aspect for you to listen to everyone. Make sure that you have your own list of why you are picking the school. Right now, you might have a budget related reason, you can have a geography related reason. Like I said, you can have a reason based on whether it's a 1 year program or a 2 year program, right? You want to kind of look at it. So, say, for example, if you're somebody with a higher experience, you want to also understand that how is the recruiting world abroad, and especially if you're looking at schools abroad, you also want to understand that how is the recruiting world actually looking at people with high experience and or older applicants, right? And that is a very important information that you need to have. So little bit of research over there will help, but most importantly, look at both. Go with personal information also, which is your personal criterias. At the same time, do a lot of data driven decisions, because that will be extremely important for you to kind of look at it more objectively, right? And obviously, if work with somebody who's an experienced mentor, that will definitely help, because then people like me can actually give an insights of what actually works and what doesn't work, right? So that could be something that you could look at. Another okay, so anyone here who's bothered about coming with high experience, say yes, and no if you are not worried. Say yes. Okay. Okay. Two people saying yes. Yes, I'm worried applying. Okay. So I'll tell you a strategy of how you could look at it this way, right? Now, first of all, most importantly, don't worry about it, because what you have to do right now is understand that what are the kind of schools can I pick, and it will be a very important criteria for you to look at, because see, when you are at the stage that you are in and whatever experience you're coming with, you have to be very clear on why you're doing your MBA, right? MBA has to be a decision that can actually change your career, which also means that you also want to go to a school where you will be, there is an intellectual stimulation that is happening, right? You don't want to be in a school where you are a high experienced person, but everybody else is like 2 3 years experience. So the value that they will get from you will be a lot more than what you will get from them. right? So here, especially when we are looking at applying with a higher experience, it will be extremely important for you to look at schools and select schools that really map. Also remember that if you're looking at a school, whether it is in India and abroad, and if the average experience is say 5 to 6 years or 6 to 8 years, or whatever it is, there is still a percentage of people who apply with high experience also. I have had people who had with 20 years experience applying. We have had people with 10 plus years experience applying, 8 plus years experience applying. So it is not that it is not possible. It is not impossible, at all. But what I want you to understand is the percentage is still less, which means the number of people who are applying with, say, 20 years experience or 50 years of experience, uh, the number of people getting into these kind of schools. I am Ahmedabad, we had somebody, Yogesh, who actually got in with 20 years of experience. ISB, we had somebody. Again, I am Ahmedabad was completely different manufacturing kind of a background. ISB was with a veteran kind of a background. So again, slightly unique. No, I'm talking about full-time programs only right now. But yeah, executive is definitely an option that you could look at. But more importantly, look at what you can bring to the table. The school definitely values unique perspectives. The school will definitely understand that you as a leader has the ability to contribute to the school. You should make sure that how do you position yourself during these interviews? How do you position yourself well in your essays? And most importantly, convincing yourself first, right? You should be very clear that, okay, applying to this particular school is going to be helpful for me. You should be very clear that applying to this particular region, because see, when you are looking at somebody with higher experience, there are a couple of um, aspects that you need to worry about, right? One is, you'll in most cases have a family, so there are visa things if you're looking at schools abroad, so you want to make sure that is taken into consideration. Second is obviously the cost aspect of it. The higher you are in the chain of your work, the more higher the opportunity cost is. In most cases, the salaries are in a very high range. So you are also adding to that opportunity cost to the cost of an MBA. So look at all these various options and also pick very specific schools which actually cater to maybe higher experience level friendly schools or older applicants, right? So that should be something that you should definitely look at. And this could be one area of how you could actually address them, right? Another aspect that most people worry about, and let me tell you, uh, is anyone here worried about, is my profile unique? Say yes or no. Let me say if, anyone says yes, worried about the profile is unique or not. Okay. Okay. Rajat is also worried about, Ayushi is also worried about whether my profile is unique or not. Okay. Anybody else who's worried about profile unique or not? Okay. So first of all, let's be very clear on one thing, right? There is no formula, right? Don't think, see, we are Indians. If you knew the formula, no, everybody would have got into Harvard, right? So don't go with this formula thing that if I do this, if I score this, I will get into this top school. That doesn't happen. It doesn't work like that, right? Uniqueness can come in many ways. Uniqueness can come in terms of your profile. When I say profile, uniqueness can come from the industry you have been working in. Uniqueness can come in terms of your own story that you're going to talk about. Uniqueness can come in terms of your perspectives that you have. Uniqueness can come in terms of, uh, you know, specific aspects or any vulnerability that you show, right? Now, one thing that is very important is, and this is something I was talking to someone just yesterday, and they said that, uh, I have a family NGO, and I can easily get a certificate from them, right? And I've not really worked with them, but I will easily get a certificate from them, right? My view to these things is, first of all, if you're applying to completely depends on what level of school you're applying, right? Lower ranking schools doesn't care whatever you say. Higher ranking schools, see, it is important to be authentic, right? And more importantly, when you're applying to these schools, these are people who have evaluated thousands and thousands of application every year, right? They have read thousands of essays and stories every year. They do read that, right? Which also means that they will very well be able to understand what is true and what is not true, right? And it can be very simple questions they ask you during your interview, and they will be able to figure out whether you've really done it or not, right? The depth will show only if you have really done it. So one thing is, make sure you're authentic. Like I said, uniqueness comes in many different ways. Also, don't worry about showcasing your vulnerability, right? Schools love really bold thinkers. If there is a risk that you have taken in life, if you feel that there is some mistake you did, there was a failure. Like I remember last year, there is this question in one of the schools which says that leadership and ethics go hand in hand. Has there been any situation where you have kind of faced this problem, right? Now, when we were discussing and brainstorming, we came up with a lot of thought process. We came up with a lot of examples. And, I remember she told me that, there was one situation where there was a very tight deadline at work, and she was working for a very uh, a financial institution kind of a thing, where the integrity of data was extremely important. So there was one specific system that required a security code or a security entry, which required multiple levels of approvals. And because they were in deadlines, and they had a deadline to meet, and approvals would have taken a long time. At that time, for a second, she took a chance, and she said, okay, let's not go with the approvals, let's just get into the system and get our process moving. And that's when she realized that it was not about just sharing a password, right? It was about why these policies, why these compliances are even created, why it was important for her to not breach that trust, or the breach that code of trust that the clients had in them. Because nothing happened when she did this, but it could have happened. There could have been a data breach, and that's why these compliances are created, right? So it was a very vulnerable kind of a story. It was a mistake she spoke about, and it is something that she really wrote in her essays, and she got through too, right? So what I'm trying to tell you is, at any point, if you have a story of a failure, if you have a story about a vulnerability, it also makes you stand out in some way, right? Stand out does not mean it is always about achievements. Stand out can also be about what you learn from your failures. Stand out can also be about your startup failing. Stand out can also be about something that you believe didn't work for you, but what did you learn from them, from there, right? So those are the kind of things that really matter, and that is what can make you unique in multiple ways, right? So again, dig deep into what all you can bring to the table. Sometimes what happens, we as Indians are not very good at actually marketing ourselves, right? Sometimes you feel that, array, what's so big in this is not so unique, so many people do that, right? But no, that's not true. There can be certain things about you that can actually be highlighted, that can actually be interesting, right? So think through, dig deeper, talk. You will be able to figure out something, and you'll be able to come up with something. And I think that's in a very important aspect of what can actually make you unique. And the most important thing over here when you're applying to a B school is, don't be hazy about your YMBA. And I cannot stress on this enough. This is extremely important. Why you want to do an MBA? Why do you want to do it now? And why you want to do it from this particular school that you're applying to? You have to be crystal clear about it. It cannot be a reason that, hey, I want to just get off. I hate my boss. I don't like my job. There is no other option I can see. That cannot be a reason. Your school is great. You have great infrastructure. You have great faculties. That cannot be a reason. The reason has to be why at this time. What is it that you have gone through in your life so far, more so professionally? Why do you think that there are some gaps or some skill set gaps in your profile, and you are eyeing for that one role, and that one role, or one aspect of one particular role or sector or whatever you're looking at, right? And you believe, for me to get to that role, I need certain skills, right? Say for example, I was talking to someone who actually is already in a consulting world, right? Who already works in an Indian consulting company. And he says that, if I really want to get into a management consulting role, MBA is pretty much a mandatory thing, right? Because, and look at it, why would they make it mandatory? What are the skills that they think an MBA can teach you? If you look at it, and if you have friends who are consultants, or if you are a consultant yourself, I would tell you that all of them will talk about in frameworks, right? Because everything is about a system, everything is about a process. When you're looking at what you learn in an MBA, there is a method to it. In fact, Crackable is part of the Stanford Seed program. So Stanford Seed program is something that they select companies every year from Africa and India, who are in growth stage. And these are companies on all kind of backgrounds, from hospitality to education to finance to life sciences, any kind of background. And the whole idea is, and that's what Stanford says, and it's right in the Silicon Valley, where a lot of these businesses are booming and are created, and a lot of these professors are actually mentors to a lot of these CEOs who are working there, right? So what they truly believe is everything is about a process. And throughout this whole process that we went through, Stanford Seed, they kept telling us that trust the process. Everywhere, trust the process, right? So now why do they feel that an MBA is required, for roles in management consulting? Is because they believe that when you're solving a business challenge, or when you're solving a business problem, there is a specific way, or there is a specific method to look at it. Are you looking at it the right way? Are you looking at it from all angles? Have you looked at it from customer perspective? Have you looked at it from a profit perspective? Have you looked at it from a finance perspective? Have you looked at it from an effectiveness perspective? Have you looked at it from a technology advancement perspective, right? So there are a lot of these aspects that they focus on when they are looking at an MBA. And if you look at the growth part in consulting, typically what happens is, as you grow in a consulting role, in a management consulting role, you start focusing on roles and in fact, most MBA roles are very top line driven roles. What I mean by top line driven roles is, in most cases, the roles that you get into will be the roles which actually contribute to the business through revenue, right? And in fact, the topmost role or the highest role that you can get to in a consulting firm is a partner kind of a role. Now, what does a partner do? The partner's job is to network and get more and more business to the company. The partner's job is to figure out which are the other areas or sectors that we can look at, right? In fact, today morning, I was talking to somebody who works for Bain, who's an analyst in Bain. And she was telling me about a project where they were actually evaluating a particular sector, and she spoke about the ESG sector. And she spoke about how Bain as a company is evaluating this ESG sector so that they can go and then pitch to different more customers, right? Now, when you look at this kind of a progression, this is the kind of information, this is the kind of knowledge that you will require when we are actually, getting into B schools, right? Hence, if you're looking at a consulting kind of a role, MBA becomes a very important factor over here, right? But all these things you should know, right? What I'm telling you over here about what will be my growth path. So, for example, you say that I want to become a product manager. You should know the growth path of your product manager role. What is going to be after that? What are you going to get out of the product manager role? What are the kind of companies I can look at? What are the different kinds of product manager roles? Is it only tech centric? Say, for example, if you're in an insurance domain, if you're a product manager in an insurance domain, maybe you're creating a product which is an health insurance, a vehicle motor insurance. In a vehicle motor insurance also, there are multiple kind of different products. So somebody is sitting and designing that, right? So this also, all these comes into corporate strategy or product strategy kind of roles, right? So if you're looking at that, so you also want to understand that, okay, what are the skills that I'm coming with right now? What are the skills that an MBA can give me? What are the roles that I want to get to after an MBA? And eventually, where do I see yourself? That part, maybe a long term is not very clear for you, but the short term definitely has to be clear, right? And I think when you're going through this MBA process, this can be a aspect of vulnerability for you, that I'm not sure whether I really like it, and I whether I will like it or I won't like it. But honestly speaking, life is always going to be like that. You will keep doing pivots, right? So right now, if MBA looks like a pivot for you, you just need to be clear that what your next pivot is going to be, right? Maybe after 5 years after an MBA, you plan to move into something completely else, and it's definitely possible. Maybe during your MBA, what you thought you wrote in your essays is not going to be what you have, what you're actually going to do after an MBA, because during your MBA, you decided that something else is what you would really want to do. So that will also be possible. So be open to adapt. It's okay to have a long term goal which is slightly hazy, but it is very important to have a very clear short term goal. And it is very important to be very clear that why an MBA is going to help you with your short term goal, right? So that is something that you definitely need to focus on. The next aspect of it is whether you know which round to apply. And this is again a big confusion that a lot of people come to me with, whether I should apply in round one, whether I should apply in round three, whether, okay, now we don't have round one, so we have only round twos and round threes left for this particular application season. So, how many of you are applying this year, either in round two or round three? Just say yes or no. Say yes if you're applying, say no if you're not applying. Okay, somebody is not applying this year. Ayushi is applying this year. Divyanshi is applying this year. Okay. So now let's look at the pros and cons of all these rounds so that you also understand. But more importantly, what are the questions that you should ask yourself? My suggestion to you would be create a decision tree. Right now, say for example, your main aspect of applying to so first thing is be very clear that you are not applying to meet a deadline. Are we clear? We are applying for an admit only. Yes, say yes if you agree with me. I want to apply to a school because I want to improve my chances of admit. Say yes or no. Please type in yes or no. All of us are on the same page. We are applying to a school because we want an admit, right? Now, that is our main aspect of it. Now, let's look at all the aspects whether our chances of admit is getting higher or not. Now, definitely, like I said, if you have a good GMAT score, it will increase your probability. If you have a low GPA or a low GMAT score, we'll have to figure out, okay, what can we do to offset that? Have we done enough to showcase my academic potential? Do I have anything in my application, or can I write anything in my optional essay to say that, hey, this is an anomaly? Second, am I ready with my application? Don't consider your essays as just like a bunch of words that you have to write. Please, 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 and I can't emphasize this enough, essays have to be given enough importance. It is the story that you have to tell. It is important that you think through it. You might have multiple reviews. You want to make sure you discuss with someone. If you have a friend who is an MBA, if you have somebody you know, or if you're working with a mentor, just make sure that your stories are validated. But it has to be your stories only, right? Like I said, authentic, like I already mentioned. Is it important for you to get an admit this year? Be very clear on that also. Because see, if you are not ready with your GMAT score, and if you feel that it is going to take you another 1 month, and you are okay to push your application to say the round one intake next year, but then obviously your admit cycle will go to 2026 intake rather than 2025 intake. So completely based on personal and professional reasons, right? So say for example, if you are with 4 5 years of experience, 1 year experience more will actually professionally not make huge difference in your profile. But say, for example, personally, a lot of people who come to me say that, no, ma'am, personally not possible. I'll have to apply this year. Next year, I will have to get married. Right. And again, men, women, everybody come with this thing, right? That I have to do my MBA before I get married. Right. So fair enough. That's a very important reason. And I think it's a very important decision to have. Right. In that case, then we have to focus on R2 or R3. If R2 is definitely something where we have higher chances, I would suggest that, okay, let's do R2. R3 is definitely something where we have higher chances. If R2 is definitely something where we have higher chances, I would suggest that, okay, let's do R3. If R2 is definitely something where we have higher chances, R3, maybe chances reduce a lot because, see, if you look at the timeline also, like this year, I think R3 for, say, Indian schools like ISB is around 26 Jan. If you look at foreign schools, R3 will be somewhere in February, March. So when you look at the timeline also, most foreign schools start their courses in August, which means you have to figure out your visa, you have to figure out your finances, you have to book your ticket, you have to serve your notice period. There are so many things that you need to focus on. So R3 literally pushes that cycle a little bit to, the latter side. So it might be difficult for you to manage those things if you push to R3. However, if you feel you can, then R3 is also okay. Also, there are some schools that provide rolling admissions, which means, like some schools have R1, R2, R3, very specific dates. Some schools will have, like, I think HEC, NUS, these schools have rolling deadlines, which means you can apply as and when you're ready, and they will pick up your profile for evaluation. So there are some schools in Europe that have a rolling admission. Singapore, like I said, NUS has a rolling admission. So that could be something that you could look at in terms of picking those schools so that it is more flexible from the perspective of you planning your GMAT dates, right? That is one aspect. Another aspect is maybe you want to check for schools which have Jan intakes. HEC has a Jan intake. INSEAD has a Jan intake. Columbia has a J term. Maybe that could be something you could look at, right? So there are some schools which have different intakes. Maybe you want to kind of evaluate that. Like I said, is if R1 is a good idea, just because you feel that I'm not ready with my GMAT and there are so many things I need to do, then you also want to understand that, okay, between now and R1, what is it that is going to change in your profile, right? Are you going to, get into a better project, a better role? Is the kind of projects you're going to do going to be extremely impactful? What are these aspects? Maybe that is something that you would want to know when you're talking about picking the right round for you, right? So that is one aspect that you would want to look at. So create like a decision tree. Create, okay, acha, am I really bothered? Okay, everybody wants scholarship. So it is an important factor, but is it really a decision-making factor? Because you will definitely get loans too. In fact, just today I got somebody from, I work with, got a 65% Forte Foundation scholarship for one of the schools she applied to. In fact, it was Simon Rochester, right? So she got 65% Forte scholarship, which is specifically for women applicants. So all those women applicants here, if you're applying to schools which fall under the Forte Foundation, these are mostly foreign schools. You can just go to fortefoundation.org. You will get the list of schools that actually fall into that criteria, right? So this is specifically for women in business. So that could be an option that you could look at. Other than that, okay, what is the next thing? How many of you have already chosen your recommenders and you're worried whether this is the right recommender to actually pick? Maybe you can type yes, chosen, no, not chosen. Yes, chosen, no, not chosen. Okay, Rajat, not chosen. Ayushi, chosen. Prachi, no, not chosen. Okay. So my suggestion to all those who have not chosen is please start thinking about it right away. It will be important because see, one thing is, okay, all recommenders have to be professional recommendations only, especially when you're applying for an MBA program. So do not pick any college professor or anyone. That's not a value add. However, you can pick clients, you can pick vendors, but mostly my suggestion to you would be to pick someone who has professionally closely worked with you at work, who understands and who is ready to tell, okay, these are the strengths that this person comes with. These are the kind of examples, that I looked, these are the kind of examples that I saw in certain projects that she or he showcased his or her strengths. Or what are the areas of, improvement? What was the most constructive feedback that I ever gave this person, right? So those kind of things will be important. If you can't take it from your current manager, you can take it from your peer manager or someone who's slightly senior. You can pick from mentors who have mentored you 2 years ago. Yes, you can, as long as it has been a professional mentorship, right? Again, for your key, which is the main recommendation, it's always preferable to pick somebody you have worked with professionally. So preferably it should be someone like a manager or supervised you, and that is something that most schools are very clear about. So they'll definitely say that pick recommenders who have supervised you, who have managed you in some or the other way, because I think they will be the people who will be actually be able to talk about what strengths and weaknesses you bring to the table, right? So that is one aspect of how you could pick the right kind of recommendation. Most schools, so like for example, some schools like ISB require only one recommendation, but most schools require two. My suggestion to you would be, if you're applying to at least 5 to 8 schools, depending on how many ever schools you're applying, at least find 2 to 3 recommenders who can apply. It can be from previous job also, from your earlier, like I said, clients. You could, if your boss has moved to a different company, you can still reach out to the same boss and ask that person to recommend you. All that is possible, right? So, but ideally, two recommenders is what I would suggest, and those two recommenders should be okay to apply to all the schools. Like submit their recommendation to at least 5 to 8 schools, whichever number of schools you're looking at applying to, right? So making sure that picking the right kind of recommender is also important. Pick Okay, one thing always remember, never submit the recommendation yourself. I have seen cases where recommenders will say, hey, here is my username, here is my password. You only go and fill and you only submit it. Never do that. This has happened to one of my students where the school responded with an email and asked that, hey, your IP and your recommender's IP is the same. Is there any clarification that you want to give over here? Right? So don't do that. Make sure that the recommender is filling the recommendations themselves from wherever they are and you don't do it for them. Yes, it's okay to review it. Ideally, you should not. It is a completely confidential process. But, if you feel you have a trust with the recommender and if you want to get it reviewed, that is something that you can do. But ideally, it should be the recommender who's actually putting in their own thoughts and their own examples on what need to be written in the recommendations, right? So that is definitely something that they should be focusing on. And, finally, and the most important, preparing for the interviews. In fact, see, if you have thought through your MBA process well, right? If you have thought through why you want to do an MBA, if you have thought through why this is the right time for you to do it, if you have thought through what are the kind of schools you want to get to, then MBA interviews will not be a big deal for you, right? Now, say for example, there are some schools, like for example, this year, ISB has chosen a slightly different route in terms of how they are interviewing people, right? So they are giving them situational topics and they are asking them to discuss on that, right? So that is one difference that ISB has taken for this year's application interview process. Ahmedabad has a similar thing where they give you situations, they ask you to pick from a chit, you get a situation and you talk about it impromptu, right? So that is something that you can prepare for in terms of interviews. Mostly it is more to deep dive into your own profile, your own industry, your knowledge about your own industry, how much you understand your ecosystem. Are you very clear about your growth path, like I spoke about your YMBA and stuff like that? All those things are very important, right? So be very clear, be very articulate in terms of how you're talking about things and how you're kind of uh, explaining what you do without being extremely technical. You have to focus on it from a laymanish perspective so that anybody understands. At the same time, focus more on what you learned from that job rather than saying I did X, I did Y, I did Z. Right? So don't focus on the technical aspect of it, or don't be very technical. Understand that who are you actually catering to, and then make sure you learn how to articulate and do practice a lot before your interviews, right? So that is also something that is extremely important. So I have a question here which says, does the profile of the recommender matter? Uh, uh, See, honestly, if you have someone who is higher up the rank and you have closely worked with that person, it will definitely help. But if there is someone who is a CEO and he's your uncle and or your friend's dad or something like that, but that person has not really worked with you, stick to somebody who has worked with you, because the kind of questions that are required requires them to actually put in a lot more examples and not just put in adjective saying that, hey, Ayushi is very diligent and a very hardworking person, and that's why I recommend him. I recommend her. It has to be more based on examples. That I remember that there was this one project that we worked together, and this was the situation. This was the task we had at hand. This was the action that Ayushi took. This was the result of the action, and this is what she learned out of it. And I think that was a great thing about her. And I think this is why I believe she's XYZ, right? So that is the whole way of how it is important for recommenders also to be prepped very well. So make sure that you are also putting in your time and effort to explain to the recommender on what you're pitching yourself as in your MBA application, so that they also put in the right kind of effort for your recommendations too. Right. So that's pretty much what you need to focus on. I think I'm exactly at 8:25 now, 1 hour done. 5 minutes to 1 hour done. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me over here. I hope you got some good information about it, of how you could actually address your fears, how you could actually overcome, and got few points on what you need to do to kind of figure out what you need to do next. Right? Any questions, please feel free to ask. I'm happy to answer your questions over here. Anybody else? Any questions? Any questions? No questions? All right, so then that's about it. I think we've already, I mean, my entire session today was around questions. So I hope I answered most of the questions that maybe most of you had on your mind. If you have anything else, please write to me. I'll also just give me a second. I will share my calendar link. So if you want to kind of book a slot with me, if you want to kind of understand how your profile is, whether your profile is unique enough, or whether you want to kind of understand what exactly you would want to talk about in your profile, we can do a quick 30-minute call. I can give you an idea, and then based on that, you can plan whether you want to apply this year, next year, or whatever timeline you're looking at, right? So here is my calendar link. And if you are interested, please feel free to just book my slot, and I would be happy to help you. Right? All right. So I hope this 60 minutes was interesting and was informative for you guys. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Shibangi. And please let me know if I can help in any way. And this session is also there on YouTube, on the Crackable channel. So you can go to live and actually revisit this session if there is anything that really helped you. Right? All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good weekend. Bye bye. Take care.